It is hour number 2 of the show, and that means it is rapid fire time along with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. We are here until a little bit shy of 7 o'clock. This is one of those weeks where we have full shows every day. Trevor Trowbridge going to be in with me tomorrow because Vince and Jesse are both out bopping and scatting around somewhere.
It's bopping and scatting. It's the NIC boys track meet. So
Okay.
I'm in charge of the start-finish line that night. So
really?
Crown an NIC champ tomorrow. Yep.
Do you have like one of those digital things?
I got a stopwatch.
Just a stopwatch. Okay.
And then but everything is I'm the backup timer basically, and then I get the order of finish of everybody and that kind of stuff. So,
all right.
Couldn't do it without me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's put a lot on Vince's back is what they do.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
Well, the ACC meetings have been going on this week in Florida. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips did a little press conference today, and he was talking about the college football playoff and Notre Dame, and essentially talking about why he supports the 24-team college football playoff format. And here's what Jim Phillips, ACC Commissioner, had to say.
Consistent in what I've indicated to this group, and that is when you're leaving national championship contending teams, university schools out of the playoff, you don't have the right number. We lived through it, we suffered through it with Florida State when the field was 4, and I know other schools have suffered for it. And I've said this, very directly. Notre Dame was a CFP worthy team this year. They just were. And you saw what happened to the last team that got invited with Miami and the first team out. So those teams looked alike and all year. And the differential that we felt was head-to-head, but everybody felt that those two universities and schools were similar. So my point is that's rationale for it. The other rationale I would just say to you is there is so much investment going on in the sport of football and in college athletics. And I'm not necessarily concerned about schools that have traditionally found their way to the college football playoff. I'm talking about those that would have a chance that right now don't have a chance to get into that playoff and have a reasonable chance to win it. And I think that's about access. And if you're going to ask presidents and chancellors and boards to continue to invest in their football programs, it's really important that they have hope, that they have an opportunity at the beginning of the season to get into the playoff. And I think it can also lead to better non-conference scheduling, that you can afford a loss or 2, or maybe even 3. And so we can talk a little bit more about that. And I also think the last thing I say, I think it helps stabilize college athletics, college football to a greater extent.
I mean, there's a lot there from Jim Phillips, ACC Commissioner. Little ambient there, but one of the reporters I think recorded it with his phone. Yeah, and you could hear some of the clicky clack clicking away. I mean, some of the stuff we've been talking about, Vince, including that very last comment about the incentives to continue to schedule better teams when it comes to non-conference games, which is something that we have attached to USC, which also is like, where USC was, again, feels like they kind of gave Notre Dame an ultimatum that they knew Notre Dame could not, give them by playing the week 0 game to keep the series going this year. And, so that led to the series going away. That buys USC a little bit of time for the potential for expansion. And if they get expansion, just like we've said, there's incentive for USC to jump back in with Notre Dame once again.
Yep, 100%. And as soon as he said it, I was like, yes, somebody. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Commissioner Phillips. But he made a good point. We will get better non-conference games if the field is expanded, and he's absolutely right about that. It is very hard to hear him say how Notre Dame deserved to be in the playoff based on everything that the ACC
The way things went down.
media, or I should say the ACC social media
Yeah.
was just denigrating Notre Dame left and right.
Team A, Team B, and
you can say whatever you want about what actually comes out of his mouth publicly. If you're the commissioner, anything that is tweeted or that's out of your mouth, in my opinion. So he's kind of doing a little bit of a two-step back kind of approach here.
No, I mean, as Father David says here in the chat, my memory isn't what it used to be, but that doesn't quite sound like what he was saying back in November and December. No, it's not. It is very much more, though, aligned, like Pete Bevacqua has talked about the fact that he and Jimmy Phillips, as he likes to call him, Jimmy, have had a lot of great talks, and they met and, kind of patched things up and kumbaya. Apparently, it definitely seems like the ACC and Notre Dame are at least a little bit more in sync with what's going on right now.
100%. And Jim Phillips, for all of his faults, he also does understand the benefit of having the Notre Dame relationship.
Yeah.
Whether that's in all the other sports or whether it's with football, but he understands the benefit. And he is one that is going to nurture that relationship. And I think he was reminded of that relationship about 6 months ago that, hey, man.
Right. We may not be full-fledged, but we're pretty, I don't know if you'd call it in-laws or what, it might not be true blood, but look, the rest of the sports, with the exception of hockey, are in there, so Notre Dame is still a member of the conference. That's why Pete Bevacqua was at those ACC meetings himself this week, because he's an athletic director of a school that's in the ACC, whether it's football or not. And they have an obvious relationship. They still have a scheduling relationship when it comes to football. So there might be plenty of coaches and administrators and athletic directors, like we talked about yesterday, who don't appreciate Notre Dame's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but it is what it is. And Notre Dame, it still is a valuable resource for the ACC when it comes to their standing right now. Notre Dame, if nothing else, from a football standpoint, said this yesterday, Miami would not have gotten into the college football playoff last year if they had not played and beaten Notre Dame
100%.
because of the 2 losses that they sustained in conference play. If they didn't have another playoff caliber team like Notre Dame that they had a win over to help their resume, they would have been left out of the playoff last year. If they would have been playing Florida A&M again last year instead of Notre Dame, they wouldn't have made the playoff because of the 2 losses that they had.
100%. That's absolutely 100% accurate. And, deep down, Miami fans and Miami people understand that. And Jim Phillips understands that as well. And you can do the head-to-head comparison and all the things that you want to do. We're not going to rehash all of that. But the bottom line is playing Notre Dame is beneficial. End of discussion. Right? If you're an ACC, these ACC ADs and the ACC coaches, and, they're all complaining apparently about Notre Dame's relationship and all that. I don't hear them complaining when they're cashing checks.
No.
Coming from the ACC, which are
exactly right.
So much more lucrative because Notre Dame is part of the conversation.
And again, if the ACC, if administrators in the ACC think that the money that they're getting through their grant of rights TV contract isn't enough, just think of what it would look like if Notre Dame was not attacked.
Exactly.
I guarantee it would probably be worth at least $10 million less per season.
Correct.
Getting right now.
Yeah, per season, per school. You know, there's just the value is absolutely there, and they can admit it if they want to, but we all know what the reality is.
What did you think of what Jim Phillips said about the whole, it does cost a lot of money now, if you have any aspirations of being in the college football playoff and contending for anything, you're obviously spending a lot of money on your roster. I mean, the whole rev share thing, everyone's got to spend something, and every team is spending a pretty considerable amount of money to try to stay competitive and get into the playoff. And what he was saying is you've basically, by expanding the playoff, you are, you're basically you're spreading the wealth, I guess, to an extent. You're giving everyone at least some kind of hope that recouping some of your money
Mhm.
is a possibility. And I think that, again, when you look at big picture, while more people are getting behind this 24 team format, I think that comes into play as well. Like even if you're not a legit championship contender, at least by getting into the playoff, you're recouping some of the money that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
investing up front to try to be competitive. What do
Oh,
you think of that aspect of it?
I think that's legit. I mean, if you're going to invest in something, whether it's a football team or a business or whatever, what's the ROI, right? What's the return on investment? And nobody wants to back a loser. I mean, again, whether it's business or athletics or whatever, nobody wants to back a loser. And so you need money. And in the NIL space, you need money. And if you did a study on the teams that make it into the college football playoff versus teams that don't, I think it's a safe bet that the teams that are spending more money have a much better shot of making it into the college football playoff. I mean, that's look at it, IU, for example, right? The losingest program in the history of college football. All of a sudden, they want to spend a little money, a lot of money, and they're in, and then they win, right? Now, of course, coaching comes into play and all those things, but there's no mistake. Make no mistake about it. They spent money, right?
Right.
And they spent money, and then they won. And look at Texas Tech, for example. Not exactly a college football powerhouse. They spent money, they won, and they got in. So it's across the board, right? I mean, outside of maybe the Group of Five team, and I would even say if you took the Group of Five team that made it in and you compare them to other Group of Fives, they're probably spending more money than the other Group of Fives, right?
Yeah.
Not in comparison to the SECs and that kind of
Right.
stuff.
But in comparison to the other,
exactly,
teams to the same level, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're investing something.
Absolutely. And with 24 spots, you got a much better chance of getting in.
No one's doing it just because you've got a great coach today. That's just
no, they're not.
Like being a great coach is part of the equation, but you've got to spend a lot of money to keep your roster together. But you've also got to recruit well, and you've also got to do all those other things. But everyone is spending something, and I get it. A lot of people completely think that a 24 team field is too much. I know that. I know Brian Driscoll does not agree with it, and I think that he went off on it, again, at least to some extent on his show in Irish Breakdown earlier today. Mr. John in the chat, he's been pretty steadfast that he disagrees with it. But according to Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, Pete Bevacqua, Notre Dame athletic director, is behind a 24-team playoff. What do you think about that?
I guess I'm not overly surprised. Access equals potential to win, right? And if you don't get a ticket to the dance, then you're not going to be dancing at the end, right? And if there's a 24-team playoff, you got a much better chance of getting your ticket punched. And so I guess I'm not overly surprised. I also think that with a 24-team playoff, I believe a piece of that is they're getting rid of conference championships.
Right.
How does that not help Notre Dame?
And
right?
that I think is probably what's holding up unanimity right now in turn. Like the SEC feels like they're probably actually the lone holdout, and it's because of the fact a 24-team field, first and foremost, as we've talked about several times on this show, again, everyone's allowed to have their own opinion on it. From a Notre Dame perspective, I think a couple of reasons why Pete Bevacqua is behind it. One, the financial aspect that we just talked about with Jim Phillips, that he talked about, and the rest of the schools. Like everyone's putting money into it. Expanding the playoffs guarantees that more teams get a chance to at least recoup part of that money. And the more that you keep winning, the more windfall that you get back. And if you're Notre Dame, because you're independent, you get to keep all of that if you keep winning. So there's a big financial incentive for Notre Dame, if the field does expand to 24. And the other side of that, like we talked about, is scheduling. If 24 teams can get into the college football playoff, there is much less risk for USC or for anyone else to continue to schedule Notre Dame down the road. And let's face it. I mean, I don't think Lincoln Riley was very shy about it. That's part of why USC is not a big part of why USC is not playing Notre Dame right now. You can talk about all this other crap, but it comes down to that. Lincoln Riley wants a chance to get into the playoff, and he didn't think that he could do it by keeping Notre Dame on the schedule.
Well, everybody's given their opinion about the 2014 playoff in the chat, and look, there's a lot of easy answers to a lot of those questions. With 24 teams, it's not going to end any later. You just move things up a little bit, and you get rid of conference championship games. The timeline is still the same, of course. And does it minimize the regular season? That's the big one, right? I don't think it does, because now you're going to have more marquee games, and I'll die on that hill.
Right. And that's, again, like we're getting, the same stuff about, and again, Driscoll is anti 2014 field. And I know that he, like he's willing to die on that hill. And a lot of people, a majority of the people who are watching our show in the YouTube chat are watching Brian's, so they've gotten his take on this whole thing. I know that he is anti 2014 field because, sanctity of the regular season and all these different things. But as you were saying there, Vincent, I didn't mean to cut you up, but you're going to get better matchups in the regular season,
better games,
if you have an expanded field. So we can talk about, minimizing the regular season, but if you're going to get fewer Power 4 teams playing fewer group of 6, and in exchange, if you're getting less of USC playing San Jose State and Fresno State and more of USC playing Notre Dame, isn't that what you want?
Right.
Like, don't you want more of that in the regular season? So I don't think that you're making the regular season worse. And you're also guaranteeing that in November, I don't even know what the multiplier would be, but 10 or 20 times the games that would typically mean something in November are going to mean something if you have a bigger playoff field.
100%. It's going to make November awesome, but it also makes early September awesome, because I think you're going to have better matchups, and you're going to have more games that matter in November. I couldn't agree more. I haven't heard Brian's specific rant. He has a he's very persuasive usually with his argument, and I tend to find myself following whatever he had to say about an argument. But I feel pretty good about this one. I feel pretty good about this one. Because conference championship games are a gigantic waste of time, and coaches don't even want to play in them anymore.
Right. And that's
get rid of them.
We started with conference championship games, and then we talked about all this other stuff. But that apparently is the biggest sticking point for the SEC right now, because the SEC's championship game is such a moneymaker in comparison to the others. The Big Ten's is as well, but the SEC championship game apparently is valued between $80 million and $100 million. That's just for the SEC's conference championship game. So whatever TV revenue that an expanded college football playoff would bring, the SEC has to, they're not just going to give away $80 million to $100 million. They've got to, whatever this new contract ends up being, they've got to get their money back in this whole thing. So that's why that is such a sticking point for the SEC right now. They want 16, whereas everybody else is pushing for 24, because 24 again gets, part of the plan is you'd get rid of the conference championship games, but the SEC is not just going to walk away from that kind of money to do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to come down to the money. I mean, let's be honest, right? It's going to come down to the money. And I just think that there's going to be so much money, and you're not going to be guaranteed slots. I think that's silly, right? But the SEC is going to get a ton of teams in. The Big Ten is going to get a ton of teams in. They're going to make their money.
And that's how does it offset between, apparently a 12-team field currently generates about $1.3 billion a year. And there are 11 total games in the 12-team format. So if you go to 24, it would add 12 games, but ESPN, because of the contract, would own up to 13 games, which means there would be 10 new games in a 24-team field that would be up for grabs, up for bid by the TV network. So 10 new games, so again, it's like how much money are they able to make on, we were talking about Netflix earlier. I'm sure Netflix would go in and want to drop a pretty good amount of money to get of those games, again, like when you go back to the event thing. But then the other thing is, it's not that the TV revenue isn't your sole source of revenue, because the first two rounds, the way they've, put this pitch together for the 2014 field, are all going to be on campus sites. And that a lot of SEC schools are going to be hosting some of those games. So, there's still
Tons of money to
still
be
that
made
extra
there.
revenue that's going to be tied into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that the proposal is a perfect proposal as it sits, right? I mean, on-campus games are great. Don't get me wrong. I will never forget the IU Notre Dame game when it was on campus here. I mean, it was unbelievable, right? It was so great. But it's also an opportunity, in my opinion, to use some of these other bowl sites because these bowl games are ridiculous right now. Kids are opting out. You got all these different things. So use some of these secondary bowl sites, into the playoff, that kind of a thing. What that looks like, I don't know. But that would be my suggestion, not necessarily all the way through. But, going on the road to an NFL stadium or whatever is also not a bad thing to do.
DJ says, but it's not a guarantee that USC will schedule better teams. I mean, it's not a guarantee that anyone will,
right. But I think overall they will.
But if you're playing the numbers, if you're playing the odds,
right,
there is a greater chance that teams are going to be willing to schedule, continue to schedule better non-conference games.
Right.
The bigger the field is, the better, the greater the chance that teams are going to be willing to do that. And I mean, USC and Notre Dame are talking right now. It's
because the 2014 playoff is being talked about.
Right.
I'm telling you, that's part of it.
Right. They're in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is pushing for the 2014 deal. It's definitely part of it.
Yep. And USC realizes they can make a bunch of money and it's not going to hurt them in the playoff talk. Like that, it's not hard to understand, really. Follow the money. It's always about that. Follow the money, follow the opportunity.
There you go. I like how we call this segment rapid fire, and we've got like 15 minutes left in the show, and we've talked about one topic. So
that's what we do.
Very rapidly. We did not rapidly do anything.
It's not really a thing we do. We don't do anything rapidly.
No.
So that's okay, though.
Comprehensive fire? I don't know exactly.
I have to come up with a different name when it's you and me.
I know. So, as I said, we are bringing back our favorite little off-season game, and it is called Guess the Season Over/Under Win Total. We pick a different team, not every day, but we mix them in. Now that the off-season is here, we pick a team, we take a look at their schedule for the 2026 football season, and then we go to before we go to FanDuel, we guess what their over/under win total is going to be. Then we go to FanDuel and see what the official listing is. DJ says only one team. Well, there's a lot of days between now and when training camp starts. So
yes. Only one team
out
today. Only one team today.
Yes. One team a day. That's right. And today's team is the University of Southern California Trojans. We are going to guess the over/under season win total for them. So if you're watching in YouTube, and I'm going to blank it out just to make sure that nobody cheats here, you can guess what you think their win total is going to be, but please don't look it up and post it in there.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Because we are literally, neither one of us is, they posted these like 2 months ago, I think, maybe something like that. And I remember, like there were initial tweets and stuff like that, for different teams, what their win totals were. And I wanted to make sure that we started this with enough room that we kind of blank that out of our mind, so we come into this with a fresh slate so that we can have fun doing it. So
I don't remember any of them except Notre Dame. So.
I don't either. I don't. And honestly, I could probably take a pretty good guess at what Notre Dame's is. I know it's pretty high.
Yeah,
this year, but I don't know exactly what it is off the top of my head. So let's go through USC's schedule.
Okay.
And then we will come back and we will guess what their official FanDuel over/under win total is right now for the season. So they start with San Jose State, week 0, by the way.
Hilarious, by the way, yeah.
And then they play Fresno State.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's on to Louisiana. Those are all 3 home games. I say on to Louisiana, but those are all 3 home games. And then their first road game, they go cross-country to Rutgers. Open Big Ten play, September 19th. They follow that with a home game against Oregon, a home game against Washington. They are at Penn State, October 10th. Then they are at Wisconsin, October 24th, a bye week, October 17th. Halloween, they host Ohio State. Interesting game on Halloween, October 31st. 2 weeks later, they've got a bye after Ohio State. 2 weeks later, they go to Indiana. They host Maryland on November 21st, and they end the regular season in the Rose Bowl against the only rival on their schedule, UCLA. So there are USC's 12 games.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think their over-under season win total is, Vince?
So as I look at the schedule, I see 7 wins guaranteed, right? I see 7 guaranteed wins, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
agree with that.
7 games they should win. I'll say it that way.
San Jose State, Fresno State, Louisiana,
Yep.
Rutgers, UCLA, Maryland. There's 6. Wisconsin, that's 7.
Yeah. Well, and I have UCLA. So what am I missing?
I said UCLA.
Oh, you did say okay. So if you said UCLA, then we're good. Because they play 5 ranked teams.
Right.
Okay. Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State, and IU. So they play 5 ranked teams. I think, those are 5 toss-up type games, and no guarantees there. So 7 is the number I think that they're guaranteed to win. You figure you got 5 type games. They host some of those, obviously, and they go on the road for some. So they host more than they go on the road, though, which is an interesting piece of this.
It is
the big games anyway.
I mean,
right?
the fact that they've got Oregon, Washington, and Ohio State all
at home. Yeah. So I think that says something. So my gut was 8.5, but I'm going to go 9.5 as my number. And that might be high, but I feel like 9.5 is the number because I think they could win 2 of those 5, right? But do they get that third? I think that's the question as to where this number is. So that's why I'm going 9.5.
Well, that's the thing. How good are they really? Are they actually going
exactly?
Are they actually going to beat a good team?
Right.
I mean, that's literally the question for them, because they lost to Illinois last year. Now, they beat Michigan. They lost to Oregon. They obviously lost to Notre Dame last year. And those were their toughest games. They did beat Iowa. How good is Iowa? But, again, we go round and round about how actually tough their schedule is year in and year out, and how tough any Big Ten schedule is year in and year out. And my gut instinct is the same as yours, 8.5. And that's why I'm wondering, do I bump up though?
I know.
I think Vegas, it's a good point. That 3 of their toughest games are home games. I still say don't overlook Penn State, the fact that they have to go to Penn State as well, and the fact that they have to go to Indiana this year. Those are a couple of tough road games. I'm going to go 8.5. That's going to be my number.
My gut is usually the way to go. I think I may be overthinking it. I may be giving them more credit than they deserve. The whole championship window and all this other nonsense. 9.5 may be high here. I'm going to stick with 9.5 because, look, if USC is a 10-win season, they have a shot of making the playoff. I think we can agree on that, right? I mean, if they win 10 games, they're going to be in the conversation. If they win 9, I doubt it. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, so you are sticking at 9.5, right?
Yep.
I'm going with 8.5. All right, I've got the app, FanDuel app. Have not opened it yet. I'm getting ready to open it for USC, and the number is. Can you see it? Is it too blurry? 8.5.
I knew it.
Trust your gut, Vince.
See, it happens to me every time.
Trust your gut.
Happens every single time.
And the over is plus 110. The under is minus 134. So that says that Vegas doesn't even,
they don't even think they're going to get to 8.
They're going to get, Yep.
And they're probably right, is the thing, which is what makes it even more ridiculous to say that they're in a championship window. I'll just say that.
Yep. So there you go. Our first guess the over-under season win total for the season. USC 8.5.
Well done.
Is their number.
You nailed it. And somebody in there said, Salty said they will drop at least one gimme game. There is that possibility, by the way. You know, traveling out to the East Coast twice, you know, apparently, according to coaches, that really is a draining situation.
Yes.
So, I mean, they could lose to Penn State. They could lose to Rutgers, you know, but they could drop one of those gimme games. That's definitely a possibility. They could lose to UCLA, a rivalry game. Maybe they don't have much to play for at the end of the season. You know what I mean? That's definitely a possibility. So 8.5 is absolutely the right pick. So well done, sir.
Real rough, all that travel. Like, remember, Notre Dame went to San Diego to play Navy and then went to New York City.
Yeah.
And, you know, at Yankee Stadium against Syracuse, and then had a game in Chicago and another home game, and then went back to L.A. to beat USC to close out the season.
It's amazing, isn't it? You know, it's a plane ride, guys. Like, you'll be okay. They're not. It's not
a chartered.
Correct.
Ride, by the way,
it's not 1923 where you're getting on a train for like 2 days to get out to California. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Casey says he does give Lanning credit for not complaining about travel. That is something that you haven't heard.
He doesn't. Not yet, anyway. Give it time.
All it's going to take is a loss or two, and
correct.
You'll start hearing that. Man,
that's exactly right.
Those trips out to Maryland. Yeah,
it's tough.
SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey had an interesting comment this week about his conference not playing games on Fridays. This whole Friday thing has become a topic of conversation. He says, quote, "For everybody that thinks we just grab money, we could grab money by putting games on different nights of the week," end quote. Does it kind of feel like a shot at the other three Power Four conferences by saying that?
I said earlier that I don't generally agree with Jim Phillips on a whole lot. I really don't agree with Craig Sankey a whole lot. I do in this one, and I'm here for it, man. Throw that shade at those Friday night games, man. Like that.
Seriously.
I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. At least he understands football's for Saturdays. College football is for Saturdays. And the SEC is a lot of things, but they are obsessed with tradition. And so I'm okay with that.
They also have the richest TV contract of any of them.
They have that too.
So, they do have that going for them.
They do. And that contract hopefully says you can only play on Saturdays.
I mean, it's let's be honest. The Big Ten is the only conference playing games on Friday nights that really doesn't need to be playing games on Friday nights. But
that's very true.
Fox obviously likes to put some games there. I guess I've got a problem with, like, especially if you're going to play them on Friday night. Like, is FS1, is it really worth being on FS1 to play a Friday night game? Like,
yeah, seriously.
Like, at least have it be on the big Fox,
Because, like, I think the networks, they still hold Friday nights, like they have stuff on Friday nights, right? I mean, that's still a thing, I think.
Do they? I don't know what they've got on Friday nights anymore.
That's the thing. I don't really know because I can't remember the last time I watched a live TV program. I just record them all and watch them when I have time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm so spoiled, like commercials. I don't sit through commercials. I fast forward through commercials. Like, I'm that guy now. So I don't know what's on Friday nights on these regular stations.
Okay. So Chris says he doesn't gamble. He's asking what makes a half victory. Okay. So the number is 8.5 because you can't set it. You can't set an over under at just 8 because if you win exactly 8 games or 9 games
push.
or whatever it happens to be, it's a push. And then Vegas doesn't win. You don't win. Vegas has to refund the money. So you set it at 8.5 because it has to either be over or under. There's no push in that case. So that's why like Vegas is always going to set their lines, like when it comes to the win totals, an 8.5, a 7.5, whatever it happens to be, because whatever it ends up,
you're either a winner or a loser
or an under. Right.
Nobody likes a push. Nobody likes a tie. It's why we don't like soccer. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, the whole Friday night thing, I'm not as dead set as you, as someone who's not out at high school games anymore, doesn't have, a kid in school anymore. Like I don't mind being home on a Friday night when I've got nothing else on, and I'll flip over to a college football game. So
I get that. I totally get that. You and I are in a different profession, number one. Like, I don't have any kid playing high school football anymore either. But my job tells me I have to be at high school football games.
Correct.
So, but that's what Friday nights are. And it's been that way for me for a really long time. I was calling games while I was coaching, and then I was calling games. Then I was watching my kid. Like, I've been doing Friday night football for 20 years. Like, that's and more if you count as a player, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it just Friday nights are for high school. Like, it's just the way it is. It's ingrained in my head.
DJ says Friday is where they send failing shows to die. I mean, not even that, that's probably that's definitely kind of how it was. I don't even know if that's the case anymore because there's so little original programming even on network TV
That's fair.
anymore. Like when I was little anyway, All in the Family was on Saturday nights. Like, and that was like first run stuff. You don't say anything first run that has a chance of doing anything on Fridays or Saturdays anymore. But with all these streamers, it's like, I don't even know if anyone has that philosophy. Speaking of like the TV stuff, we're getting a little bit of a slow trickle of some of these games, like from Fox in terms of college games now. Obviously, the NFL schedule comes out tomorrow, but they do, like Fox, NBC, CBS, they do a draft of what games, who gets to carry during the season, when it comes to Big 10, Big 12, and stuff like that. Like the Ohio State Michigan game is typically the top pick in the TV draft every year. Would you watch a live draft of who gets what games to televise if they televised it?
I would not watch a TV version of that draft. But what I would do is I would love to be in the war room or whatever as they were doing it. Like that kind of a thing. It wouldn't keep my attention watching it on TV.
If they put on, because especially if it's going to take hours to do it.
Yeah.
If they put on a condensed version, like a 1 hour special on on FS1 or, wherever it happens to be, some streamer, like have you seen any of the stuff that they were doing, like you were saying, War Room, like they've shown some of the War Room moments from during the draft and stuff like that, like the NFL draft a couple of weeks ago. If they put together like a 1 hour special, I would definitely watch. I think it would be really interesting to hear
a special. Yeah, I get that.
Like the executives mic'd up and like them talking about what game, like, okay, here are our possibilities and like what the strategies are behind it. I think it would be interesting to see, like how these networks are making their decisions on which games they want.
That's like I said, I've said this on this show before. One of my bucket list items would be to be in the war room for the NFL draft. You know what I mean? Similar idea for me.
Sure. I agree. All right. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to let Vince get out and finish his job supervising those youngins doing their high school broadcast out there at Four Winds Field tonight. Stay warm. I guess you're in the press box, so you don't have to worry about that. Mailbag Day tomorrow. Woo! Mailbag Day. The new Mailbag Day is Thursdays now. So be here with your Notre Dame football questions and other questions on tomorrow's show. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I will talk to you later, sir.
All right. See you Friday.
Sounds good. That's going to do it for us tonight. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.